The IELTS test is one of the most common and most well-known international English tests. There are many situations where you might need to present your score from the IELTS exam. Some people do the IELTS test to study abroad, some do it to apply for English-speaking jobs and they need proof of their English level, and others take the test because they intend on living overseas and it's often needed if you're applying for a visa. Whatever your reason is for taking the IELTS exam, it is important that you prepare as much as possible beforehand. It is not the type of test that you can just turn up on the day and give it your best shot and hope for the best. You need to practice and apply yourself in order to get the grade you want. In this video, I want to help you improve the writing part of the test with some real examples from previous students of mine and corrections or suggestions on how you can improve your writing skills. Hi, my name is Catherine. I'm a business English teacher. I work with intermediate to advanced level students. Most of my students are preparing for a new job or a promotion or because they are going to be living abroad. If that sounds like you and you are also on this path, definitely subscribe. I post 2 to 3 videos a week and I am sure you will find something helpful there. I only have an hour before my next student, so I'm trying to film this as quickly as possible. So that's enough of introductions and let's get started. The writing part of the IELTS exam is split into 2 tasks. And depending on whether you are taking the IELTS exam for academic writing, so studying, or you're just taking the general training exam for moving abroad, for example, those tasks will look slightly different. As you can see, I've put on the screen here, the academic writing is split into a graph or table analysis where you will be given some information and you have to review and write that information as a summary. This takes about 20 minutes and the next 40 minutes are your essay response to questions such as, should we care more about global warming and climate change? Or is technology good or bad for us? Can sports fans be too aggressive? Kind of conversations that you don't usually have on a daily basis. They will be testing your ability to argue for or against something. The general training writing will have a letter writing task as task 1. So you will be given a situation and you have to write a letter to someone in that situation or explaining that situation. The second part is again the essay response. So the essay response is in both the academic writing and the general writing. But in the general writing, the essay response can be a bit more personalized. Whereas in the academic writing, it needs to be more formal, more professional written communication. The writing section is 60 minutes overall, and the tasks need to be split into 20 minutes and 40 minutes. However, you will not be told when 20 minutes is up or over. So you need to take charge of your own time and you need to make sure you take note of the time you start writing and when it's time to move on to the second task. I also advise you practice doing this at home because then you will get a feeling of how many words you can write in 20 minutes, how long your response will be in 20 minutes. So in the exam, you don't find you're writing for 30 minutes and now you only have 30 minutes for the second part. The second part gets you more marks as well, so it's important you give yourself as much time as possible for the second essay response part of the writing section. How is the test marked? It basically gets split into 4 sections. So you have task response, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. So for the task response, they'll be looking to see, did you answer the question? Did you stay on topic? Did you respond to the question asked? What was your understanding of the question and what was your understanding of how you needed to answer that? Coherence and cohesion is just a really easy way of saying understanding. Is it easy for the reader to understand? And is it easy to see what your point is? Does it make sense? Are you on the right track? Can I understand what it is you are trying to explain to me? Lexical resource. This is all related to the language used, the vocabulary chosen, how you use that vocabulary. Are they being used in the correct way? You can include fantastic words, beautifully written essays with lots of different vocabulary. But if the vocabulary is being used wrong, this will affect your ability to use that vocabulary, and therefore you will be marked down in this lexical resource section. And then last of all, we have grammar accuracy. Now, I think this one's quite obvious. It's just, are you using grammar in the right way? Are you using the right tenses? Are you using the right preposition, the right articles? Now, it's really important to note that there is no right or wrong way to answer these questions. A lot of students panic that maybe they're giving the wrong answer or not the correct answer that the examiner wants to hear. The examiner is checking your ability to use the language. So it doesn't matter if, let's say, for example, the question is technology a positive or negative invention? And you start answering that it's a negative invention and feel, what if this isn't right? What if it's a positive invention and I'm getting the wrong answer here? That doesn't matter. They're not looking for your opinion. They're not looking for what you believe. They are looking for your ability to show your opinion, to demonstrate what you believe, to explain your point of view. I could write an essay saying all elephants are pink. Of course I'm wrong, but if it is perfectly written, beautifully constructed, and I've made no mistakes, they're not going to mark me down for thinking that elephants are pink. Now today I'm going to be going through some example answers from a student of mine who recently took the IELTS test. She originally got an 8, a band 8 score, but the course she's applying to go on, you need a band 8.5. So she came to me to find out how she could improve her writing. We went through some of the students' examples, and although they are written brilliantly, fantastic vocabulary used, beautiful sentence examples, there were some mistakes and some issues that I found with her writing. And I thought it would be really helpful for you to see what a band 8 level student is writing, but also what a band 8 student can improve on. I have the student's permission to share these answers. She's allowed me to share them with you. And of course, these are just examples. You must write in your own words with your own voice. If some of this vocabulary is not in your active vocabulary, don't force it to be, and you will see what I mean by that as we go through her examples. You also don't need to aim for a band 8. If you are a 7, a 7.5, that's absolutely fine. But I think having an example that is a lot higher than most people's expectations, that's a fantastic way for you to think, this is what I need to aim for. This is my goal. So I'm going to put one of her examples up on the screen now. And of course, I'm going to read it through with you, but you can pause and read it for yourself if necessary. So the question was, around the world, many adults are working from home, and more children are beginning to study from home. Because technology has become cheaper and more accessible, do you think this is a positive or negative development? And then of course it says give reasons for your answer, include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. So like I said previously, make sure you have 40 minutes. You only took 20 minutes to answer task 1. And as you can see in the question, you can answer positive or negative or a mixture of both. If you want to raise the positive reasons and the negative reasons, that's a fantastic way to construct your essay. In fact, I gave this plan to my student, which I will put up on screen. I gave this plan to my student because she was struggling to stay on topic. So I said introduction. So kind of introduce your answer to the question. Second, all your positives. Third, all your negatives. Fourth paragraph, your summary or your personal opinion. This is a very nice way to structure your essay, and if you stick to this structure, it will show you don't go off task or you haven't misunderstood. So let's start to go through her answer. The topic of new technological devices use has proven to be highly contentious. Now, this is a very nice introduction. You name the topic, you introduce the topic clearly. However, The topic of new technological devices use. You actually have two topics there. The first is technological devices themselves. The second is the use of those devices. So it's not clear what you're talking about. Are you talking about the use or are you talking about the device? This sentence would read much more clearly if it was to say, the topic of new technological devices has proven, or the topic of the use of technological devices. With that example, it's quite clear whether I'm talking about the devices themselves or the use. So let's move on to the next sentence. And more so amid the current competitive prices and accessibility that those are offering. So again, those are offering. What are those? Because the student introduced two topics, devices and their use, when you say that those are offering, I don't know what you're referring to. So this would be better if she had said something like competitive prices, accessibility that those devices are offering, or that the use of those devices are offering. Link it back. I don't know what you are referring to. These gadgets are meant to facilitate both people's jobs and studies further development. Okay, first of all, I want to mention the use of gadgets is fantastic here, because she said devices previously and gadgets now. So both mean the same thing, but it's a demonstration that you have more vocabulary. So instead of saying devices, 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 throughout her response, she can say devices, gadgets, products, electronics. Use synonyms for whatever it is you're talking about, because it is a very easy way to demonstrate a wider range of vocabulary. However, the end of this sentence is a bit confusing. Meant to facilitate both people's jobs and studies further development. So again, are we talking about the jobs and studies, or are we talking about the further development of these jobs and studies? These gadgets are meant to facilitate both people's jobs and studies, full stop, makes sense. But also, these gadgets are meant to facilitate the further development of both these jobs and studies, also makes sense. But together, I don't know if you're referring to the development of your jobs and studies or just your jobs and studies in general. I can see why the student did that, because they're trying to demonstrate vocabulary, they're trying to demonstrate a more complicated understanding of the topic. But instead of having these as two separate sentences, or instead of choosing either one or the other, you've made the sentence complicated, and therefore it's actually doing the opposite of what you want. It's not demonstrating your vocabulary skills, it's just demonstrating you have the vocabulary, but you don't necessarily know how to use it in a sentence. Be that as it may, often it is quite the opposite. So because of the further development and jobs and studies, this bit's a bit confusing. What is quite the opposite? But it's still a nicely written sentence with a good transition phrase, be that as it may. Albeit, again, really nice transition phrase, albeit. I recommend that before you go into your exam, you write down a list of these transition phrases, or sometimes they're called connecting phrases, albeit, nonetheless, furthermore, therefore. With that in mind, write a list of these so you can throw them in your essay every time you want to introduce a new topic or start a new paragraph. I deem it fundamental to have a structured routine outside the comfort zone. Come what may, a question needs posing to future generations. So again, really nice sentence, really nice use of vocabulary, but come what may is one of these connecting transition phases, but it's not used quite correctly here. Come what may means whatever happens, but we haven't discussed what could possibly happen yet in this essay. So come what may would be more likely to be used after you've introduced a positive and a negative and a potential future outcome. To start an introduction with come what may is a bit confusing because you haven't yet introduced enough topics. The rest of the sentence is really nice though, which is such a shame because if she had just started the sentence, a question needs posing, that would have been a fantastic sentence. Listen to this. A question needs posing to future generations which will be embedded in the restrictive high-tech culture. It's a lovely sentence. But come what may, unfortunately, you don't know how to use that phrase. So your whole sentence is then questioned. Are citizens becoming clueless without the daily use of innovative computers? Again, I can completely see why the student wanted to put innovative in here, because it's a really nice descriptive adjective. However, the sentence itself is a negative. Look at the sentence again. Are citizens becoming clueless, so negative, stupid to, or not focused on, without the daily use of innovative computers? Why would you put a positive adjective in a negative sentence? That's the same as me saying, I am really disappointed in how creatively you let me down. It's kind of strange. Why would I compliment you being creative when I'm trying to tell you you let me down? So again, fantastic vocabulary, but not used in quite the right way. On the off chance that the internet has opened a wide array of opportunities to get... Okay, I'm going to stop here because I have a couple of things to say about this sentence. So on the off chance that the internet has opened a wide array of opportunities. On the off chance suggests that we don't know or don't expect something, or it's very rare. So for example, I might say, I will go running tonight on the off chance it doesn't rain. The understanding is maybe it's 95% going to rain, but if it doesn't, I will go running. So it's used when we're not sure something's going to happen. But with this sentence, we know the internet has given us more opportunities and opened many doors for us. So on the off chance doesn't make sense here because we're guessing something that we already know. So again, fantastic vocabulary range, but used in the wrong way will lower your score. And last one for this example. So wide array of opportunities to get an in-depth view of assets worldwide. Now, again, I can see why the student chose the word assets, because it sounds more advanced than opportunities or knowledge or power or whatever it is she was trying to say. But the thing is, an asset is a valuable item or thing owned by a person or a company. So your personal assets would be your money, your finances, your house. Maybe you have stocks and shares. A company's assets would be everything they own. An in-depth view of assets worldwide. We're not trying to look at assets. We're trying to look at knowledge and resources and information. That's what the internet is for. So of course, you can see assets of a company online, but that's not what the student meant. The student meant there are a wide array of opportunities on the internet to get an in-depth view of worldwide knowledge, different perspectives, different mindsets. And she goes on to explain that past generations didn't have access to this knowledge. They had to look at books or encyclopedias. So another example of trying to show that you have a good vocabulary range, but not understanding exactly how to use that word means that you using that word is completely useless now because your sentence doesn't make sense anymore. This, of course, was not the student's entire answer. This was a snippet of their introduction. I think it gives a demonstration of my main piece of feedback that I gave to the student. There's an excellent range of vocabulary, but you're not using it quite right. And you're trying so hard to find synonyms for basic words, you're actually losing the meaning of the sentence. You would lose marks for your vocabulary, for your cohesion and coherence. So that's two areas where you would lose marks for this introduction. Whereas if you had stuck with the more basic vocabulary, but had written it beautifully, the only area you might lose marks is your vocabulary section. And you can always read back your answer and add words in where you think, I should have used something else. So let's say, for example, I write, children these days have more knowledge of technology. And I read it back and think, I'd rather say, children these days have a better understanding of technology. So they both mean the same point, but I've chosen a synonym that actually still makes sense in that sentence. So here is another example from the same student after I'd given this feedback. So you'll see some differences and some of the mistakes are the same. This is from the middle of the answer. So they have already done an introduction, but I want to show you what a good body of the essay might look like. I think it's pointless to go through lots of introductions with you, so this is from the middle of her answer. The question was, Many people in poor countries die from diseases that are curable because they cannot afford the medication required. Do you believe that drug companies should make their products available at reduced prices in those countries? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge and experience. So, as I said, she had an introduction and then she went on to say, first and foremost, pharmaceutical businesses, like any other company, will only sell products in markets that result in profit for their enterprise. Nonetheless, this fact. So I'm going to stop there. Can you see how she's used those same transition words, phrases, nonetheless, first and foremost, but used in the correct way? They are used very well. So the student has clearly practiced writing these in the right places with the right ending of the sentence. So already you can see a huge improvement because she's not using vocabulary that she doesn't understand how to use, but it still demonstrates a very good level of vocabulary range, but the cohesion, the understanding is much clearer. So I'm going to skip through some of this and come to, for instance, if under research vaccines for malaria were provided to Africa, the mortality rate in that nation would substantially decrease. Fantastic sentence. This whole paragraph is brilliant. I couldn't correct anything here. You can clearly see, compared to the first answer that we looked at, the student is being very careful to only use vocabulary that she knows 100% how to use, that she is familiar with. However, it still shows a very advanced level of understanding. Deprivation, substantially, crucial breakthroughs, these are all fantastic vocabularies to use, but she has used them correctly. Furthermore, unless prior discussion with economical and political tycoons of a nation, healthcare industries will not be permitted to lower their prices. Now, I did correct her use of tycoons because I didn't think it was quite right. I think leaders would fit better here. It's not technically incorrect because a tycoon is someone with wealth and power, but we wouldn't refer to the leaders of our country as tycoons. We would refer to them as politicians, leaders, or as a whole, governments. But it's not technically incorrect, it just doesn't sound quite natural to put tycoons in here. So again, an example of a synonym for a wealthy person, but not used quite correctly. However, I didn't mark her down on this because I could see what she meant, and she's technically not incorrect. Politicians usually are very wealthy and very powerful, so they are tycoons. We just don't describe them as tycoons. As a result, a nation's government should be the entity which takes responsibility for such pressing difficulties. Now, the student told me she used the word nations because countries seemed too simple. She wanted to improve the vocabulary. She wanted to demonstrate her knowledge. But as you can see, the use of nation sounds repetitive. We used it in the first sentence and we're using it in the sentence immediately after. Because of this, it takes away from how great the sentence sounds. You'd be much more likely to say countries than nations, or government, or the governing party. So here, because she's tried to make it sound more advanced, she's actually just repeated what she said before, and again shows maybe not an understanding of what the word means, just replacing countries every single time. I think this would have read much better if the first sentence had nation and the second sentence said countries. She then went on to say the responsibility for such pressing difficulties. Now, this is very beautiful phrasing, but very vague. What difficulties? Why not just say the entity which takes responsibility for the accessibility of therapies and medicines? Again, the student wanted to show off vocabulary, but pressing difficulties is very vague. I don't know what you're referring to. What pressing difficulties? It sounds like a politician when they don't want to admit they've done something wrong, and they'll use a very vague phrase. Plus, if she had written takes responsibility for accessibility to medical care or medical treatment, accessibility is a fantastic use of vocabulary, but it's more specific to what the problem is. What is the pressing difficulty? Given that pharmacies are unable to confer more affordable prices, again, same thing, confer does mean discuss. Yes, let's confer later. We need to confer with the customer, but it doesn't sound natural. Confer means to exchange ideas. But what she is trying to say is they are unable to change the price. They don't have any power to decide what the price is. So this is a decision. So discuss or negotiate would be much better here, or offer an affordable price. By means of illustration, the political organization of a country should provide monthly aid to those who have been diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. Now, last time I'm going to say this, AIDS has been used as the student wanted a word more advanced than medicine. But the student could have made the sentence more advanced by saying a country could provide monthly assistance to people or to lower income families, or financial aid, medical aid, access to good healthcare. By saying monthly aids, it's very vague. Again, it's like a politician not wanting to admit to something, so they use a vague word that could apply to anything. Using more specific vocabulary that makes sense in this sentence would have shown a much better understanding. Now, technically, the student has stayed on topic. The question was about offering medications at a lower price to countries that cannot afford it. But if you look, the actual question was, do you believe that drug companies should make their products available at reduced prices in these countries? The student is talking about why they can't offer these prices. They're not talking about, do you believe it should be? They're not talking about the struggles that people that cannot afford healthcare go through. They're not talking about the effects of expensive healthcare. They're talking about why they can't offer. So you could argue it doesn't answer the question. It's the same topic, yes, but it doesn't necessarily answer the question. So again, the task response section would maybe be marked down. I think it's important to note that the student I have used has a fantastic level of spoken English. She got an 8, a band 8 in her IELTS exam for spoken listening and reading. It was her writing that let her down. There was also a lot of overthinking on the student's part when writing. They would swap out words they knew for words they weren't 100% sure about. In spoken English, this is harder to do because you're answering on the spot. You're saying the first thing that comes into your head. You don't have much time to think about it. But in written English, you have time to go back and see what you've written and change out words. But by changing out the words for words you don't know 100%, you're not knowledgeable in how you can use them in a sentence. You're completely undermining all of your hard work. So bearing this in mind, and with these examples we've looked at, here are my 4 main takeaways and suggestions if you are preparing for your IELTS exam. The first one, I think you could probably guess this. I've said it over 50 times in this video. Use vocabulary you are confident with. It is better to use less advanced vocabulary but with absolutely 0 mistakes than to try and add in more advanced vocabulary and the sentence loses its meaning. You can, of course, learn some advanced vocabulary before you go into your writing test. That's a good idea, but also learn how to use it in a sentence, not just the word itself. Number 2, plan your answer before you start writing. This student in particular had a tendency to start talking about something different, and she wasted 10 minutes and couldn't get back to the original topic. So I told her, why don't you bullet point before you start? 2 minutes. So you've done your task 1, you've got 2 minutes before you start your task 2. What's your first paragraph going to be? An introduction. What's your second paragraph going to be? Your positives. Or your opinion. Your third paragraph, bullet point what you are going to write there. So let's say it's about global warming. I would say introduction, how the world has changed. My second paragraph, I would maybe say the effects we are seeing now. My third paragraph, the effects we might see in the future. Fourth paragraph, summary and how I think we can change this. So bullet point what you're going to write about in each section. Third, read your answer as you are writing it. Don't only wait till the end when the 40 minutes is up to go back and read. Every time you write a sentence, just quickly double check that it makes sense. Put your commas in, put your full stop, cross your T's, dot your I's. And the fourth and final tip I'm going to give you is structure. So decide a structure before you go into your writing task, and that links to those bullet points. And the easiest structure is the one I gave you at the beginning of the video: an introduction, the positives, the negatives, summary. That is the easiest structure for you to remember. But if you want to do a different kind of structure, you want your own opinion in there, you want facts or statistics in there, do it. Decide on your structure before you go into the exam, and every question you get, stick to that structure. I hope this was helpful for you today. I know it was a very long video. I was talking quite fast. There was a lot of information. Please let me know down below if you are intending to do your IELTS exam, if there's anything else you would like to see. I had an idea for a new video where you can send your written tasks to me and I will edit them in a video so that other people can learn from them. So if that's something you want to do and you want me to go through one of your answers, please feel free to send me an email with your answer, your written answer, and I will do that. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for supporting me. I really hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye.